It is the Jesse Kelly Show, another hour of the Jesse Kelly Show on an Independence Day Eve. We have a gigantic show for you this hour and the final hour. It was great, the first hour, and I know because I did it. Quit. We'll talk about the NGO charities, Catholic charities helping illegals into here, China in the 2020 election. In fact, we're going to get on that right away. We'll talk about cooking bacon with Chris. No, I'm kidding. We won't let Chris in that, but we'll discuss cooking bacon, all that, and so much more coming up on the world famous Jesse Kelly Show. So, in case maybe this is your first Jesse Kelly Show this week, and I couldn't imagine that would be the case. Surely you hang on my every word, but I have been hot all week on this story, this story that we now know because of declassified documents. And credit to the Dan Bongino FBI. They're the ones who gave us these documents. The FBI found out China was trying to essentially win the 2020 election for Joe Biden. We don't know whether or not they succeeded because the FBI refused to investigate it and then buried the information. So we'll never know, right? But we'll never know. The FBI covered it up. Then went to Congress and said, Russia is trying to help Trump, essentially taking the Democrat line, hiding China's involvement. Eventually, we get a president for 4 years who destroys the United States of America, a president with a history of being tied to China. It looks bad, right? There's your 30-second primer. If you want more detail, you have to go back, download the podcast. Dr. Queso. Now that we know China was trying to cheat in the 2020 election to elect Joe Biden, how much more likely is it that COVID was not a lab leak, but a 100% intentional biological weapon? His name is Chris. All right, so I'm going to give you my theory on this, and then we'll dig into what you just said there. We know that there's a lab in Wuhan. That's well known by now. We know by now that we, the United States of America, our money, your money, my money, it was going there to help fund this research. This research that is, how do we take this virus and make it deadlier? How do we weaponize this virus? And they do this because they justify this by saying, well, we're doing it because the enemy might do it, and then we need to figure out how to treat it. Okay, so it's a lab where they're not just studying viruses, they're juicing them, they're supercharging them, making them worse. You funded that, I funded that. That we know. That's not that much is not up for debate. This is all open information. Only a moron like your liberal Aunt Peggy thinks otherwise. This is all factual, black and white information. It's all out there in the open. That we all know. Now we're going to get to what I think, and I'll justify what I think before I get to your theory. I think the leak was accidental. Pause for a moment. It could easily be intentional. I'm just telling you what I think. I think it's very, very difficult to keep microscopic viruses, especially ones you've purposely weaponized. It's difficult to keep them contained. It just is. It just is. This is not my world. I'm not a virologist. It's not. This is not my world. But every expert I talk to says, "Look, you can take all these precautions in the world, all the suits and the chambers and the this and the that, but it's still a microscopic virus." And on top of that, I had one guy tell me this. He said, "Jesse, we dismiss this fact, and we should not. Viruses are alive. It is a living thing. And not only is it a living thing," he said, "I don't want to say it thinks, but it adapts. If you find a way to treat it, to kill it, to go after it, viruses will change. So maybe you've even created a virus, and maybe you've created the conditions in the lab where you can contain the virus that you created. Well, that virus can change. You don't know how they change. It's wild." My belief is it leaked. China found out, obviously, first that it leaked. And let's pause real quickly here. Remember that China is a communist country, and that's really important to remember because remember, what do communists do? They lie about everything at all times. Always lie. They are commanded to lie. When you are a communist, you do not get in trouble for lying. You get in trouble for telling the truth. Remember that movie Chernobyl, or what actually happened in Chernobyl, depending on what you want to look at, or TV series Chernobyl. The history of Chernobyl is they had this horrible nuclear fallout. They knew there was nuclear fallout, and their first reaction by everybody was, okay, how do we cover it up? We got to lie. Oh, well, we're not going to tell the truth. Oh, my gosh, let's lie. We'll figure it out. We'll lie. Let's just lie. Lie to the people, lie to the other governments. It's what communists do. If you're communist China and your dirty communist virus gets out of the lab, your first instinct, every Chinese official on every rung of the ladder is going to be lie. I know I'm supposed to lie. They tried to lie. Now, people began dying, not in droves like they said, but as soon as people started to die from a virus that was, quote, new, I think China recognized they had an opportunity. Remember, there is this little fact, not debatable, this is another fact. There's this little fact about it that tells me my theory at least is credible. China shut down internal air travel while still allowing international air travel. That would be like we get a brand new virus, some horrible virus, we'll call it Chris. So this virus called Chris, it leaks from the lab. It's terrible. Everyone hates it. The United States of America, our government says, all right, we are shutting down every single domestic flight in this country. You can't fly from Miami to Wisconsin. You can't fly from New York. Internal flights in America are banned. But you can fly to Beijing. Beijing flight leaves at 8. That's exactly what China did to us. Oh, no. You can't fly from Wuhan to Shanghai, but I mean, if you want to go to LA, that would be fine. I think China recognized they had an opportunity to do something that they really, really needed done. And they knew they were going to have accomplices on the American left, in the American system. And what they needed done, what they wanted done, was the exact same thing every American Democrat, every university professor, every scumbag on CNN done. They all wanted Donald Trump out of the White House. Donald Trump was in the White House. His economy was going gangbusters. Donald Trump is famously very hard on China, always has been, believes in a strict China policy. China wanted that to stop because Democrats are famously soft on China. Well, what's the best way to get an economy that's going gangbusters? What's the best way to screw it up? Well, just have the government stop it, just like they were doing. They were welding people in their homes. In a communist-controlled state, they were just flat out telling people, no, if you leave your house, you'll be shot. Goodbye. They allowed it or purposely sent it here. That's a good theory. And they did it really in an effort to remove Donald Trump from office. The American communists recognized they had an opportunity because, remember, Democrat or Republican, sitting presidents with economies that are going well, or at least even okay. If you have a C-plus economy, sitting presidents get reelected. Doesn't matter whether you like them, I like them, hate them. Sitting presidents get reelected unless the economy's in shambles. You need to be Jimmy Carter with 17% interest rates and gas lines in order to screw up getting reelected. If you're president, the power of the office, you get reelected. Unless, of course, the economy goes into the crapper. They got into Donald Trump's ear, and of course, he has to own that. They got in his ear and said, hey, you better shut it down, Mr. President. And I understand how it went. I do. He does have to own it and take responsibility for it, but he's sitting there. He's Donald Trump. He has people, experts, the experts, all these medical degrees telling him, hey, you're going to have 1 million Americans dead. You might have 5 million Americans dead. Do you want to be the president who has 5 million Americans dead? And he caved. There was all kinds of debate inside of the White House. That I know from my sources in the White House. They were split right down the middle. No, don't shut down the economy. Oh, yes, you have to shut down the economy. He went with the shutdown thing, shuts down his own economy. His own bureaucracy starts writing these ridiculous guidelines that states followed, and your kid couldn't read by the time it was done. What did China get in return? A president who allowed them to fly a spy balloon from the Pacific to the Atlantic. That's what they got. Your theory that China did it on purpose could be 100% true. That's what I think about it. A lot of that's factual, but that's my theory. I think they pounced on an opportunity. They may have just created that opportunity. You might be right. I'm certainly not going to tell you you're wrong, but they pounced on an opportunity. And the Chinese communists worked with the American communists and gave us Joe Biden for 4 years. That's my theory. Let's move on. Let's talk about these NGOs. What can we do about that? It is the Jesse Kelly Show on an amazing, wonderful Thursday. And Ask Dr. Jesse Thursday. We are cruising through the questions. Remember, if you missed any part of the show, including Mike Rowe, the great Mike Rowe joined us halfway through the first hour. iHeart, Spotify, iTunes, that's where you download the podcast. And you can email us, jesse@jessekellyshow.com. Jesse, what would you do if Chris ever left the show? I'm beginning to think that he's a real man behind the glass curtain who can't talk and just texts you on the computer screen. You would have to change the whole brand of the show since it would no longer be What Chris? You know, I'll tell you this. Maybe I'm just in a good mood. And we are coming up on an Independence Day, so I'm feeling extra good right now. So I'll answer this question honestly, just this one time. What would I do if Chris left the show? I'd celebrate. Chris? I said I was going to be honest. I would celebrate and I would cheer. The show would be so much better. And more than that, my life would be better. On the radio, off the radio. I would never have to deal with it. I would not. Hey, is that kosher? I would never have to deal with any of these things at all. Just not. I mean, it would be so much better. But anyway, glad you're here, Chris. Jesse, can you speak more about the entanglements of U.S. aid with Catholic charities and NZO vis-a-vis USCCB? Sorry, that's a lot of. I'll get past those letters. Don't get me wrong. We're clearly dealing with a lot of corruption in our institutions, and I believe more would be made aware by your discussion of this evil. Okay, so there is a wonderful, well, I guess they're all wonderful. Sorry, Lord. But there's a verse in the Bible most people know that the love of money is the root of all kinds of evil. By the way, it doesn't say money is the root of all evil. That's a lie. That's stupid. It says the love of money is the root of all kinds of evil. And it really goes to the heart of human beings. No matter who you are, no matter your profession, no matter your religion, no matter your race, nationality, no matter your age, we are all subject to temptation. We are. And money is one of those things that will make people stray big time. And so this is part of the problem when it comes to groups like USAID and the NGOs that work with them. And you mentioned Catholic NGOs, and Catholics have been catching a lot of heat for this. But keep in mind, it's not just Catholic NGOs. There are Protestant NGOs who do this. There are, Chris, I'm sure there are Jewish NGOs who do, yeah, Chris is not, Jewish NGOs that do this, probably not the Muslims, but you understand what I mean. There's this runs the gamut. Even a religious institution, you're thinking, okay, you're the Catholic Church and you've started an NGO. Surely that's going to, follow the teachings of Jesus and things like that. Yeah, maybe. But what if I show up at your house with a suitcase with $10 million in it? and I say, hey, here's a lot of money. You know what I need you to do? No. I don't need you to rob a bank. In fact, I'm not even asking you to do anything illegal against the law. I'm going to shovel a gargantuan amount of money into your lap. And what you need to do is house, feed, and place all the illegals I'm going to bring into the United States of America. And let's just say if you have any objection to that, don't you know that Jesus would want you to care for the children? It's $10 million and you get to do what Jesus wants. Hey, it's a pretty good gig, right? That's how it's sold. When the government steals our money, which they do every time we get a paycheck, when the government steals your money, they take in gigantic quantities of money, vast quantities, trillions of dollars. It gives them the ability to show up with that proverbial suitcase of cash and buy a lot of evil with it. You can blame, the charities, the NGOs, all these things, but remember, it's all about money. So much of what we're seeing is simply about money, and people can't turn it down. They have a hard time turning it down. And I don't want to sound like I'm moralizing either. I despise the invasion of our country and the open borders and things like that, but I would love to sit here and tell you right now that I don't have a price, and I couldn't imagine what that price would be, but I bet I do. Hey, I'll never sell you out. I will never sell out my principles. What's something I'm super passionate? Well, we'll just make it about the border. I believe, I'm the biggest border hawk in the world. Like, I want machine gun nests on the border. That's how bad I am. I'm the biggest border hawk in the world. What if someone shows up at my house tonight with $1 billion, a private jet? I'll tell you, I don't think I would say yes, but I don't know either. Human beings are fallible. And when it comes to money, it can lead us down some really dark roads. Because Catholic charities are part of this insidious NGO group, Catholics, I think, are catching a lot of strays with the whole thing, and I don't necessarily think that's fair. I don't necessarily think that's deserved. I'm not saying don't criticize the Catholic charities. Oh yeah, if they're doing that, screw them. But I don't think it's as much a Catholic problem as it is a human problem, right? It is the Jesse Kelly Show on a Thursday. Chris, I don't like that selection for today. It's no, listen. I don't hate Leonard Skinner. Don't put that on me. I'm a Leonard Skinner fan, okay? I'm the one who said I want Skinner on the list. I'm the one who once blew up an entire radio segment playing Only Freebird. Remember that, sir? And I like that song. It's just kind of a sad song when we should be focused on America right now. It's a happy time. Independence Day's tomorrow, and now I miss Tuesday, and I don't even know who she was, right? She must have been something. She's gone with the wind, Chris. Like that ridiculous hair of yours. Shogun, when cooking bacon, are you a lay it out flat in the pan and flip them individually while cooking, or a separate all the slices and throw them in the pan all willy-nilly and stir-fry them until they're done? The subject of this one was cooking bacon. Sorry, Chris. That's great. Yeah, she put the sorry, Chris, in the subject line. Oh, hi, buddy. Thank you very much. Yeah, that's my youngest son. He just brought me a bottle of water. See that? That's politeness. You should learn some, Chris. Anyway, you people who just take, actually, I take that back. I was about to insult somebody I love very much, and I don't want to do that, but I'll say my mom will grab just a big fat wad of bacon, and she'll just drop that sucker in the pan, and then she'll take 2 forks, and she just separates it out using the 2 forks, and then just kind of stirs it around a bunch. Chris Chris said, does it work? Define work. Because obviously the bacon is going to be cooked mostly, but it creates such an uneven cook. So you have one piece of bacon that was touching the pan the whole time, and it is as black as night. It's just horrible. But then you have another one that happened to be laying on top of two other pieces for most of the time, and then it's practically raw, and you get botulism and you die. It's an efficient way to cook a lot of bacon, and I should probably defend her in this. When she's making bacon, she never makes it for herself. Of course, it's always about the grandkids. And now my boys, they're 16 and 14, and they eat like disgusting pigs. Like, you cannot imagine. We had steaks last night for dinner. My oldest had steak and what did he have? Fries. He had steak and fries, big old fat steak fries, which are gross, but that's another thing. And then he had asparagus, and it was a 12-ounce steak. He lays waste to all of it. I mean, easily lays waste to all of it. And we get home, and after an hour, I'm not even making that up on my life, after an hour, he says, hey, I'm going to go to McDonald's. Does anybody want anything? And we were all, wait, what? Are you serious? Oh, Chris. And then he went to McDonald's and got an entire value meal and laid waste to all of that as well. So that's my defense of grandma's bacon cooking method. You can't make 4 pieces for the boys, 6 pieces for the boys. They just lay waste to pounds of it at a time. So unless you want to be slaving over the stove all day long, you have to mass cook it. Me, I don't do it. I require an even cook on the bacon. And don't ever tell me again to put it in the oven, Chris, like some kind of an animal. Bacon is done, and I know it works. Okay, lots of things work, Chris. But no, bacon is done in the frying pan. In the frying pan. It is laid out in a frying pan the way God intended it to be. Well, maybe not for you, but for me, the way God wanted me to eat it was in a frying pan, laid out. No, you're not making me any bacon. I don't want any disgusting, filthy turkey bacon or whatever kosher crap. What? No, I like real bacon. I want it done in the pan, and I don't want you to touch it. Jesse, is there a more terrible food than kale? No, there's not. Ob does this all the time. Everything has to be kale this and kale that 'cause it's supposed to be healthy. We'll go out and I'll have a kale salad. She makes, I told you about those disgusting smoothies she makes in the morning, but she does put chocolate powder in the morning in them, which I appreciate. But she makes those horrible smoothies. Guess what the main horrible ingredient is in it? I don't know why I can't talk. Kale. Freaking kale's garbage. Like most green things, garbage, except for rough greens. Love you, rough greens. Jesse, I read a story about my kids. I read a story about why kids are turning communist, and it actually has some merit. It said kids don't feel like they can participate in our capitalist society because everything is so expensive, like housing. How do we make housing more affordable, and how do we stop having BlackRock buy up these properties? Thank you. And he did mention illegals about making housing more affordable. Okay, so let's just tackle this a couple different ways. Housing being affordable. The illegals part of this is not small. It's enormous. So let's look at it this way. Let's just look at it a simple percentage math way. There are 300 million Americans. I know it's more than that. I think the official number is like 330, 340 or something like that. But let's make it an even number. 300 million Americans. Now, how many illegals are in this country? No one knows, of course, but we have to pick a number. 30 million? That's probably very short considering Biden brought in 20 all by himself. But for the sake of ease, let's call it 30 million. All right. Where are they living? They have to live somewhere. They're not all in cardboard boxes, are they? They live somewhere. They live in apartments. They live in houses. Now, granted, lots of those ones, especially from Latin America, they'll pile about 25 of them bad boys in a trailer, but still, they live somewhere. So 300 million Americans, 30 million illegals. That's a 10% artificially inflated housing cost right there. Housing costs, 10% right off the board, you get the illegals out. Now, that's one part of it. Another part of it is this, and I'm going to continue to come back on this because the American people need to understand this. Interest rates are not fun, are they? They're horrible. Everybody hates interest. My father hated interest more than anything underneath the sun. He probably hated it more than Chris does, which is saying quite a bit. I mean, paying it. I'm sure Chris charges it, but you understand what I mean. Hated paying interest. We can't ever get interest rates permanently down while the government continues to spend way more than it takes in, because what that does is it piles up debt. You can't just pile up debt and have it sit there. Somebody has to buy our debt. Now, we buy some of our debt, which is ridiculous, but foreign nations buy our debt as well. If American debt gets risky, if we start to get on the cusp of not being able to pay our bills, or if the value of the dollar goes down, which it is, they have to raise interest rates. Well, interest rates aren't just raised on Japan when they're buying some of our debt, and Japan holds a lot of it. Interest rates go up for everyone when interest rates go up. Interest rates are brutal. Now, all that said, I actually have a little bit more to say about the kids or young kids are turning communists because things are too expensive, and so they're choosing communism because capitalism has failed them. Let's talk about that in a moment, because there's a frank way we should talk about that. It is the Jesse Kelly Show on a Thursday, reminding you can email the show, and you should. Jesse@jessekellyshow.com. We'll be back on Monday for Medal of Honor Monday and all that. And remember, we still have more than an hour tonight. I need to pause on what I teased going into the break for just a second, because there's something I want to do that I just found out about, and I think it's really important. I'm going to come back to kids turning communists because they think capitalism has failed them and things like that. I will come back to that, I swear. Just give me just a minute. Now, back to the Ask Dr. Jesse Thursday question about some kids. Now, this is not the majority right now. Remember, the majority of the younger generation are going right, hard right. The younger generation's the hardest generation, hardest right generation we've seen in a long time. They're going right. But some are rejecting capitalism and embracing communism because they say capitalism has failed them. After all, I'm 30 years old and I can't afford a house, and I was supposed to have a wife and 3 kids and 4.5 cars by now, and I was supposed to be living that white picket fence life, and it didn't work out. Clearly, capitalism's a big fat failure, and I'm going to be a filthy commie now. I reject that. And it's not that I reject what the kids are thinking, because anyone who thinks that's a moron. I reject that that's just the way it has to be. Children will embrace that idiotic way of thinking if they have been guided into that idiotic way of thinking. No, I'm not putting this all on parents, because maybe you did raise your son or your daughter the right way with the right values and America and freedom and things like that. And maybe they got eaten up. If it was your son, bet he got eaten up by his wife, didn't he? Like I said, men turn communist when they marry one. Women turn communist in college. You sent your baby girl off to college. You used to have a beautiful 18-year-old girl who loved God and country, and you got back a fat lesbian who hates you. I'm sorry. But they've been influenced by somebody, probably some buddies, into that way of thinking. So if you're having some 30-year-old hissy fit that you don't have a house, and now you've decided you're going to embrace communism, you're a moron who's been led astray by very evil people. It's really that simple. And besides, please don't ever make the mistake of thinking that we have capitalism here in the United States of America now. Not in the way it's originally intended. Certainly not free markets. We have some of that still, enough of that that you can still make it, no matter who you are, man, woman, old, young, you can make it. But we have gangster capitalism now. The government joined forces with the financial sector, with large corporations. Now we have presidents and senators of every party who can threaten private businesses with this and threaten private businesses with that, and businesses joining with the government. Oh, what's that? Your small bank? What are you, a little over leveraged? Guess we better come in and seize it and hand it to Merrill Lynch. That's not capitalism. Well, we have, look, all this green stuff they hand out all the time. Quote, green stuff. I'm doing the air fingers quote on that. No. We need $500 million for solar panels. Is that capitalism? Stealing $500 million of your money and handing out to their political donors who make solar panels? That sound like capitalism? That's gangster capitalism right there. No, we have a criminal government. And the criminal government has extorted and coerced businesses, just like the mafia does, into doing business with it. And the businesses that choose to do that business with it, they are now controlled by the mob. That's how it works. That's how it works. No, I want you to please protect my little diner. I'm having some trouble with the local gangs. Yeah, sure, I'll protect your local diner. But there's going to be a cost, you see. Now it's my diner. Anyway, we still have an hour. We have so much good stuff. What is it with this parliamentarian who is mucking up the works in the Senate? Let's talk about that next.